I want to welcome everyone here. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. Pursuant to subsection H of House Resolution 5, the committee convenes this Member Day hearing of the 118th Congress. A Member Day hearing provides members an opportunity to discuss legislation and member priorities within the jurisdiction of this committee. Today, I look forward to hearing from members of the House, my colleagues, on the proposals they wish to bring before the consideration of this committee. First order of business is to welcome Representative Waltz of Florida to the committee and to welcome back Representative Cloud of Texas. Congressman Waltz has served in the House since 2018. Prior to the House, Congressman Waltz spent 27 years serving his country both in the U.S. Army and the National Guard, serving as a Green Beret in multiple tours of duty across the world. He's also served as a Defense Policy Director at the Pentagon for Secretaries Rumsfeld and Gates, as well as Counterterrorism Advisor to then Vice President Cheney. We want to welcome Congressman Waltz to the committee. Congressman Cloud is a familiar face, having previously served on the committee. Congressman Cloud has served in the House since 2018. Last Congress, he served on this committee as a ranking member of the Subcommittee on Economic and Consumer Policy. We want to welcome Representative Cloud back. Congressman Waltz and Cloud are replacing Congressman Chuck Edwards of North Carolina and Congressman Kelly Armstrong of North Dakota. I'd like to thank both congressmen for their invaluable service to this committee. Next order of business is ratifying the new subcommittee roster. The clerks have distributed the roster electronically. I ask unanimous consent that the committee approve the appointments and assignments as shown on the roster. Without objection, the subcommittee roster is approved. I now recognize Ranking Member Raskin for any opening statement he would like to make.
I just want to welcome the witnesses and thank them for their testimony, and thank you for calling the hearing, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. We have circulated a list of members who will be testifying today, and any written testimony provided by those members will be added to the official record. Each member will be given 5 minutes to discuss their proposals and field questions as needed. I now recognize Mr. Ezell of Mississippi for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I want to express my gratitude to the chair and ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability for giving me the opportunity to address critical issues in Mississippi's 4th Congressional District. Mr. Chairman, to say the least, I'm frustrated. For 708 days, the residents of Poplarville, Mississippi have been without a permanent post office. This started when Poplarville Post Office roofs collapsed on January 2nd, 2022 due to termite damage. Almost a year later, the original post office was deemed unable to save. In the meantime, the United States Post Office has set up 2 temporary mobile vans similar to ice cream trucks at the bottom of the hill. Unfortunately, these vans are essentially inaccessible to most of the population. Additionally, postal workers are working in substandard conditions, including no restroom, a broken air conditioner, amid Mississippi's summer heat. But my constituents were told not to worry. This will be just a short-term situation while a permanent building is located. Well, I'm here to tell you that I must have a different definition of short-term because temporary trucks are still in use. And just today I received information that the heater in the truck died, forcing postal workers to work without heat, and it was 31 degrees this morning in Poplarville, Mississippi, and several of the senior citizens fell walking up the hill trying to get to the mail. This is not the first time elderly have fallen since this temporary deal has been set up. As you can see, over these 708 days, my constituents have faced nearly unimaginable challenges, yet the post office still claims they are providing convenient access to postal services. I recently visited the city and I witnessed the horrible conditions firsthand. That particular day, rain made the situation worse, creating a somehow even more dangerous environment. As you can imagine, I've attempted numerous times to get updates from the post office. I have requested a briefing on the situation, sought a meeting with the Vice President of Facilities, and consistently asked for updates. Yet I sit here today with still no information as to when a permanent, adequate building will be ready, and have not been granted one meeting request, which includes being denied any meeting at all with these folks. This process is taking forever, and I'm committed to ensuring it has to come to an end. Equally frustrating, the post office apparently is ignoring the severity of the situation or simply does not care. I urge the committee to seriously consider implementing some guidelines for situations like Poplarville. Such guidelines could include mandating the United States Postal Service to communicate with local leaders and requiring that a solution must be agreed upon within 180 days of determining that an old post office is no longer usable. The residents of Poplarville, Mississippi deserve better than this. Thank you again, Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Raskin. I stand ready to assist.
Gentleman yields back, and I want to thank you for being here and sharing your frustrations with the committee. Your constituents deserve a convenient place to receive their mail, and Postal Service employees in your district deserve a safe place to work. Like you, I represent a rural district, mine in southern Kentucky. And I understand the challenges and importance of rural constituents have in trying to access a suitable post office. So my staff is scheduling a briefing with the Postal Service where they will inquire about the use of temporary suspensions and prioritize your district's challenges specifically. I also want to thank you and your staff for their helpful outreach and diligent work with my staff on this issue. While we cannot immediately promise a timeline for finding an adequate replacement property, we will work to keep this process transparent for you and your constituents. Do any other members wish to speak or ask questions for Congressman Ezell? Chair recognizes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to associate myself with your remarks. And Mr. Ezell, thank you so much for joining us and for your great representation of your constituents, and we'll do everything in our power to see the situations rectified. Yield back.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no further questions, I now recognize Ms. McBath of Georgia for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Comer, Ranking Member Raskin, for hosting today's Member Day for the Oversight Committee. I am here to discuss the Federal Prison Oversight Act. My bill, co-led by Representative Armstrong, is currently awaiting consideration by this committee. The Federal Prison Oversight is a bipartisan and bicameral bill with just one goal in mind: increasing transparency and accountability across our federal prison system. My legislation will establish a federal framework for comprehensive, risk-based inspections of federal prisons to identify areas of improvement to make our federal prisons safer for staff and also for the inmates. As we evaluate and improve our federal prison system, it's absolutely necessary that we take a wholesome approach and identify the best and most effective federal prison practices implemented at the administrative staff and inmate levels. This bill provides for recommendations in many areas, such as revamping our recidivism reduction programs, improving working conditions for staff, and adequately responding to incidents of violence and abuse against both staff and inmates. Moreover, this legislation prioritizes the safety of everyone. The Inspector General at the Department of Justice can analyze a long list of areas and include them in their report. Our prison system has a notorious reputation for unhealthy conditions, abuse, and neglect, and this bill aims to combat that. Our federal prison system, holding over 150,000 individuals and employing about 35,000 individuals, should be transparent, should be accountable, effective, but more so safe. So many of our criminal justice issues could be improved if our prisons had more accountability and more transparency. The caliber of improvements that could arise from this oversight would be life-changing for everyone encountering our federal prison system. Staff would face better working conditions, and inmates would have a better opportunity to have humane treatment. I encourage the Oversight Committee to consider the Federal Prison Oversight Act, which I might add has no effect on direct spending or revenues as estimated by the Congressional Budget Office. I look forward to working with this committee to bring accountability and transparency to our federal prison systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman McBath. Your lead co-sponsor, Congressman Armstrong, has also spoken with me about this legislation. This committee is dedicated to providing the American people with oversight and transparency into every government agency, and that includes the Bureau of Prisons. So members on both sides care about the basic health and safety of inmates, as well as improving rehabilitation with the goal of making our communities safer. Friends and family members of incarcerated individuals should have a mechanism to submit complaints if they feel their loved ones are not being treated with respect and dignity. More oversight mechanisms within the federal prison system could also create a safer environment for correctional officers and staff. So I'm interested in exploring the bill's reporting requirements and the creation of an independent ombudsman. I invite my colleagues and the ranking member to further explore this with me and my staff. Do any other members wish to speak or ask questions of Congresswoman McBath? All right, well, thank you very much, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
I now recognize Ms. Porter of California for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairman Comer. When Democrats and Republicans cast their ballots in November 2024, what is the one thing that they will agree on? This isn't a riddle. It's not even a clever joke. Really, there is something. Regardless of party affiliation, every voting American wants to be confident that their ballot will get processed, will be counted. No matter who we vote for, we all want our ballots to get smoothly to their final destination. After all, this desire applies to anything important that we want processed. When was the last time anyone here sent a family heirloom through the mail to a relative without getting a tracking number? And who hasn't tracked their order of clothing or medicine at least once? Heck, which kids don't watch Santa Claus on the tracker? I don't know about you, but for me, it's comforting to know where my purchases are and when they're being shipped. That way I know they're truly on their way and I can anticipate their timely arrival. When something is important, Republicans and Democrats alike want to know it's in good hands, and our ballots are no exception. Fortunately, the United States Postal Service created a tracking barcode for mail-in ballots. But unfortunately, not everyone gets to use ballot envelopes that meet the U.S. Postal Service design requirements, and we need to fix this problem. That's why I joined with Representatives Mace, Mafume, Donalds, Connolly, Fitzpatrick, Norton, and Siskamani to introduce the Vote by Mail Tracking Act. Under our bill, every ballot envelope will meet Postal Service standards and get a tracking barcode. Voters of all political stripes can then do the oversight to be sure that their vote reaches its final destination. That transparency is a necessary step to make Republicans and Democrats alike confident in our elections. And that's exactly why this bill is led by 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. It's not partisan, it's just good policy. If I can track that my purchase is on its way, we should all certainly be able to do the same for our ballots. And this bill doesn't just make things more streamlined for the American people, it also makes processing easier for the Postal Service, reducing its burden and making efficient use of tax dollars. Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Raskin, I thank you both for your support of this common sense legislation. I know this is a priority for you as well, and I look forward to working with you to pass this bill through our committee and on to the House floor early in the new year. And to my fellow committee members, you'd be in great company joining 8 bipartisan members and both the chairman and ranking member in supporting this bill. I urge every member of the committee who hasn't done so to co-sponsor this legislation. I thank the committee for its time and consideration of the Vote by Mail Tracking Act, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Porter, for sharing your views on your bill, the Vote by Mail Tracking Act. And you and I have spoken about this bill a number of times on the House floor, and I've also supported this bill in the past, which requires all mail ballots to use a Postal Service barcode. I believe such a requirement for barcodes will allow the Postal Service to better track each ballot through the mail. You know, I have to say this, we all have horror stories with the post office, but the post office has done a commendable job delivering election mail in recent elections. According to a report from the Postal Inspector General, the Postal Service has consistently delivered election mail on time in recent years. In 2018, over 95% of election mail was delivered on time. Over 96% of election mail was delivered on time in 2020, and over 97% of election mail was delivered on time during the 2022 election. Still, I'm in favor of making this process more transparent. American citizens today have confidence that their ballot has securely traveled through the postal system to the Board of Elections. I will work with staff to advance this bill's reforms. And you know, one thing, people get nervous when you talk about mail-in ballots for various reasons. Where I grew up in the foothills of Appalachia, there were always, seems like every other election cycle, local elections, there was some type of election contest, lawsuits, election fraud, allegations, sometimes credible allegations. And almost 100% of the time, the election fraud was through absentee ballots. And I think that the more transparency we have, because, you know, there's as you mentioned earlier, there's the old way of doing things, putting a stamp on something important and hoping it gets there. That business model is kind of obsolete now. And then there's a lot of questions about absentee ballots and validity and things like that. So I think that this is a good step. And again, it's transparent. I know my predecessor, Chairwoman Maloney, supported this legislation as well. So you have my commitment. We'll continue to work to try to see this bipartisan bill through. With that, I yield to the ranking member.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And Ms. Porter, thank you for this terrific initiative, which is drawing support from all across the aisle and all across the country. I hope the idea of having a verifiable barcode connected to every postal ballot just makes great sense and will help us to get past a lot of the fear and suspicion and paranoia that has spread around voting by mail. So I'll associate myself with the remarks of the chairman and yield back to you.
Does any other member wish to speak on Representative Porter's bill? All right. Thank you very much. In closing, I want to thank the members for their testimony today. Mr. Raskin, do you have any closing remarks?
I have no closing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for calling the hearing. And I do have one unanimous consent request, which is Congressman Mfume's testimony, which he was hoping to give in person. He was unable to do it, and I would just ask that we submit it to the record.
Without objection, so ordered. With that and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit additional testimony. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.